Tina and I were both reborn. I was her husband in our previous life, and we loved each other deeply. But this time, she went from being a poor student my family supported to a tech mogul. I waited for her for 5 whole years, but she avoided every chance of us meeting. It finally dawned on me, maybe she was right. Since we've been given a second chance, why not live a different life? In my last life, Tina and I were known as the most loving couple around. She was out chasing her career, always the stoic and quiet CEO. I played the role of a stay-at-home husband, living a leisurely life. From 17 to 66, she was only mine. Even my dad, who had little faith in women, warmed up to Tina. We spent our lives together like that. The only downside was that Tina passed away before me. For the next 16 years, I lived alone with my memories of her. When I opened my eyes again, I was 16. This year, Tina and I hadn't even met. Her mom had died early, and she was being abused by her stepfather. She nearly became disabled in her freshman year. I thought this time, I should be the one to protect Tina. When I rushed over, her stepdad was about to hit her with a bottle. I pushed her out of the way. There was a flash of surprise in her eyes. The bottle smashed on my back. Shards flew everywhere. The intense pain made my vision go dark for a moment. But I didn't regret it. Young Tina stood there, coldly watching the police take her stepdad away. Her uniform was washed out, and her sneakers old and worn. After the nurse patched me up, Tina thanked me. Her voice was cool and distant. I felt a bit down, but I knew her personality was difficult because of her family. So, I anonymously transferred my allowance into her account. It was enough for her to rent a place and live on her own. Later, I saw her in new shoes and clothes. Only then did I feel at ease. The next year, in my last life, Tina came to thank us with vegetables from her garden. During summer break, having been supported for over a decade by my dad, a beautiful girl caught me playing with my dog at the villa entrance. When I asked her what she wanted, her face turned red, and she couldn't speak. It was our first meeting. I held back my excitement, calculating when she would arrive. On that day, I prepared purposely. I watched the villa's door, hoping she would knock any moment. Yet, from dawn till dusk, she never came. Did I remember the date wrong? Did Dad not support her in this life? I obtained the list of sponsored students from Dad's assistant. Tina was on it. Maybe my earlier actions caused a butterfly effect. I wanted to find her, but it was the crucial college entrance exam period, and I couldn't disturb her. According to our past life, she'd get into the best university. I'd get into college through arts, meeting her there again. So I suppressed my longing. In the 3rd year, the exam results came out. Tina wasn't the city's top scorer. I ran to Tina's old neighborhood. The neighbors said she had already left. In September, I arrived at G City, standing in the campus grounds. I walked past the lake where we used to stroll hand in hand, the bridge we called Lover's Bridge, and even visited her old major. But she was nowhere. I dialed that now familiar number. A stranger's voice answered. I refused to give up. G City was vast. Between my studies, I searched for Tina. I visited many places we'd been together. Still no luck. In the 5th year, she confessed to me in our past life. Truth is, we'd already held hands and kissed by then. But she said that didn't count until she'd expressed her feelings. I bought a ticket, flew home, returned to the seaside. The salty sea breeze tasted bitter. On the beach, I thought I saw a couple embracing. The girl said, "George, I'll give you the best life." She fumbled for sweet words, but the promise brought tears to her eyes. In a blink, they were gone. In the end, Tina never showed. I caught a fever, stumbling home. Dad rushed back overnight. I didn't know how to tell him. I just asked if he knew where Tina was. The secretary answered that student did pretty well. Made a lot trading stocks. She came asking George for money with some investment info. I realized Tina was also reborn, and earlier than me. She purposely avoided all our encounters. The secretary kept talking, but I heard nothing. My heart sank. Why? Tears blurred my eyes. In the last life, decades of love felt like a dream. I couldn't understand why. I racked my brain. arriving at a conclusion long buried. She wanted a different life. A life without me. Before marrying Tina, my dad shielded me. After marrying, Tina did. I lived in comfort, naive. I never considered a life without Tina. I was feverish for 3 days. Felt like a long illness, draining all my tears. Dad cleared his schedule to stay with me. Her stern face hid her undeniable love. I noticed a gray hair. In that moment, another feeling overtook my heartbreak. It seemed, in my past life, I was head over heels. I never cared how much Dad struggled. After she passed, the company was managed by professionals, sending me annual checks. But as times changed, Dad's legacy was lost to progress. Suddenly, it hit me. Yes, if Tina can lead a new life, why can't I? The fog lifted. My mind cleared. I wiped my tears and told Dad, I want to learn at the company. A year later, I saw Tina at a banquet. I'd heard bits about her. She went to a regular college. She started her business earlier this time. But without my full support, she didn't have enough startup funds. She did talk to Dad about investing. I didn't tell Dad about my complicated history with Tina because I didn't want him to lose his objectivity. After all, Tina's company was a success last time. But this time, after Dad evaluated Tina's project, he turned her down. He said, this project doesn't just lack a few million now. It needs ongoing investment, constant updates, and iterations. It's too much of a money drain, not a wise deal. So, last life, Dad invested in Tina's ventures because of me. Still, Tina succeeded. She knew a lot about last life's trends. Stocks, gold, real estate, cryptocurrency, enough to make her rich overnight. She even became famous earlier this time. While others her age were looking for jobs, she'd already formed a startup team. Today, she's dressed sharply, like a nouveau riche. Her striking looks drew plenty of attention. I couldn't help but look her way. Tina seemed to sense it and looked over. The next moment, a striking guy wrapped his arm around her, marking his territory. I overheard people talking. That's Tina's fiancé, Howard. They're in business together. Apparently, Tina pursued him for a long time before he said yes. Tina always had this aloof vibe. In the past life, it was me who fell for her at first sight and took the initiative. Warming a block of ice takes time. I never thought she'd actively pursue someone like that. I remembered a small past event. Back then, Tina once told me she'd found a like-minded partner. She often mentioned someone named Howard. I always thought that was a woman until one day I called, and a man answered. He said Tina was too drunk to open her eyes. I hesitated but said nothing. Tina worked really hard. I once casually brought this up when Tina and I were dining with Dad. That day, before we left, Dad called Tina into his study. On the way home, her mood was low. I didn't notice and kept sharing interesting stories with her. Until she yelled, "Enough, George, you got what you wanted." Her shout silenced me, startled. I thought she was just stressed from work. After that, I never heard the name Howard from her again. Thinking back, that Howard was probably Howard. And maybe it was Dad who made Tina let him go. But none of this concerns me now. Today, I'm here to seek investment for my own project. I didn't take over the family business immediately. I wanted to explore first. But just as I started talking business, Tina and Howard walked over. Standing side by side, they looked like a match. Howard cut in, introducing their company, Ruching. Hearing that name, I paused for a moment. Howard smirked and said with a touch of malice, "George, why compete with common folks like us for resources? Whatever tumbles from your dad's fingertips could fund multiple ventures for you." The investors shifted slightly, as if buying into his taunt, assuming I was just toying around. Failing wouldn't matter. I'd just go back to inherit the family fortune. As I was thinking how to recover from this, he added, "George, competing against us, is it all for my Tina?" He implied how I once funded Tina, stalking her and forcing her to leave her dream university. I looked at Tina, hoping she'd say something to clear things up. Even if we're not meant for each other in this life, wasn't the 50 years in a previous life genuine? I refused to believe she actually said that, but she stayed silent. Howard watched my reaction with a satisfied grin. Finally, Tina spoke coldly, "George, this investment means a lot to us." I understood. It mattered enough for her to step on me to get it. She added, "Please be the bigger person this time." Her words cemented Howard's insinuations. I stood frozen, unable to believe what I'd heard. The investors turned their gazes to me with a knowing look. I was at a loss for words. At that moment, someone approached, putting an arm around my shoulder. Her eyes, like blossoming peach flowers, carried a chill, and her smile held a dangerous edge. She said, "I wasn't aware my fiancé was pestering someone else." Tina's expression changed instantly. Proving someone did something is easy, but proving they didn't is hard. I couldn't immediately debunk Tina's words, so I turned and said, "Making Tina give up a top university, really my fault. But if she's so easily swayed that she jeopardizes her future, maybe she's not cut out for entrepreneurship." Howard wanted to argue, but couldn't. Tina's gaze rested on Alice by my side. Alice, American with striking mixed features and a high-bridged nose. She grabbed everyone's attention. Alice was the second in her family. Technically my fiancé, or rather my ally. I've tasted love. It's like a fancy cake, sweet, blissful. Yet, who knows a heart's true intentions? It's better to try a true partnership. I silently thanked Alice with my eyes. Today, both she and Tina were in suits, but Tina looked stiff and formal. Alice, on the other hand, had looks from a beauty contest champion dad. In Tina's frosty gaze, Alice vouched for my project. The investor's interest seemed piqued. But getting real money isn't easy, so he didn't finalize the deal right then and there. I didn't get discouraged. I handed him my card and invited him to see the place next time. Howard didn't want to be outdone, so he gave his card too. After the party, Alice offered me a ride. I politely turned her down. Alice, who's all about living it up, didn't get annoyed. She just stepped into her flashy sports car and roared off. That night, I was chilling in the bathtub, just zoning out. Then my phone rang. It was from a number I didn't recognize. But somehow I had a gut feeling. The night was quiet. The stars were trying their best to shine. I picked up the phone. Silence on the other end for a long while. I wasn't in a rush. Finally, I heard that insanely familiar voice. "George, you really don't need to keep doing this pointless stuff. For 5 whole years, Tina avoided me like the plague, like I had some contagious thing. And now, she's contacting me out of the blue." That voice felt like I'd been hearing it forever in another life. It's the voice I searched for over 5 years. Hearing it now felt like I'd lived a whole other lifetime. I didn't get what she meant right away. Tina went on, "George sponsored me, but there are things you can't force. I've got a boyfriend now and, well, he's probably going to be my husband." I was stunned for a moment. Then it hit me that she thought everything I did today was because I had feelings for her. She thought I couldn't have her, so I was trying to take her investments. I cut to the chase and asked her, "What makes you think I like you?" Tina paused, didn't answer that. But I knew why. She didn't know I'd lived again, but she was convinced I was into her. She was so sure because she knew. She knew I took the hit for her when her stepdad swung the bottle, knew I sent her money, knew I rented that pricey apartment close to high school and then sublet it to her cheap, knew I warned the bullies to back off her, knew I sent folks to her workplace to boost her sales. She knew it all. She knew I'd been looking for her. Thinking about it, I couldn't help but laugh. Laughing at myself for 5 years of wishful thinking. For being so blind. So naive, so foolish. I laughed until I cried. Tina, on the other end, didn't get why. "So, George, I hope you stop doing things that make me uneasy." She didn't get to finish before I hung up. As a final gesture, I blocked her number. If we're starting fresh, no more messy loose ends. Inevitably, I still ran into Tina several times. G-City is huge, but folks chasing the same goal always seem to end up in the same spot. Tina often looked my way. But don't get it wrong. It wasn't because she missed me. It was because I was stepping on her turf, seeing me navigate the world of power and money so differently than before. It was a brand new life, exciting and full of surprises for me. The best part? Achieving things on my own terms. That's what accomplishment feels like. No wonder so few women stay home these days. A few days later, I heard that Tina and Howard got engaged. The woman looked radiant in the photos. In a red dress, The man's arm was sweetly intertwined with hers. We used to be like that once. My heart ached for a split second. But only for a second. I've got too much going on. Memories, however, couldn't help but drift back to another lifetime. I'll tell George to divorce you. I'll get back all the investments I made in you. Tina's voice was so calm. She said, Howard and I are just friends. He got laid off. He asked me to join him because he was upset. Besides, could George handle such a blow? Dad hesitated. He wasn't getting any younger. He did have that heart thing from a while back. When I heard that, I almost fainted. Tina continued, George is my husband. I'll be with him for life. The girl who used to be shy and awkward around me was now so glib. I opened my eyes slowly, making a small noise. Tina rushed in instantly by my side. Her eyes full of guilt and worry, just like how she loved me before. I sat at my desk for a long time. Turns out, not just in this life. Even in the past life I thought was perfect, it was full of lies and deceit. Alice's message interrupted my thoughts. It was a flirty selfie, half-open shirt, her pink tongue teasing the corner of her lips. Her eyes were dreamy, looking all too inviting. Her voice note was husky and teasing. Fiancé, I've been tricked. Feel like taking advantage of it? Watching my past wife happy with someone else? Is this the same as seeing an ex move on? Tina and Howard's engagement party got quite the buzz online. Perfect couple. The woman elegant and beautiful, better looking than some celebrities. The man vibrant and confident, appealing to everyone these days. Howard used the buzz to start a social media presence. During a live stream, he casually mentioned Tina had an admirer. A rich guy giving her a hard time. I know Tina looks good, but to me, she's just an ordinary woman. I hope that young master sees sense soon, he said, sounding pretty chill. When Tina got home from work, she walked over and kissed Howard on the cheek. Howard exclaimed, making Tina realize they were still live. The comments were all about jealousy. Meanwhile, I stared at the screen and thought. In another life, it was mostly me chasing after Tina. I told her day in and day out that I liked her, loved her, called her honey, and was the one who asked for kisses. It wasn't until 10 years into our marriage that Tina gradually made kissing a habit. A kiss before leaving home. A kiss when returning. Did I teach her that, or was it all just faked? Howard and Tina were still playfully fighting on the stream. Suddenly, someone behind me asked, Do they look as good as me? Alice blew a warm breath in my ear. Her eyes had a flirty, mischievous sparkle, as though they could reel me in. Her face was still a bit flushed, but her head seemed fine. Last night, I called her bodyguard to take her to the hospital. But 15 minutes later, my doorbell rang. Alice brazenly walked into my house. I shoved her into the bathroom for a cold shower. I wanted to call 911, but she stopped me. She said this wasn't her first time dealing with something like this, and she blamed her looks for it. She really does attract attention. Even now, acting like a troublemaker, I didn't call the cops. She gave me a kiss on the cheek, shamelessly saying, See, now you've had a kiss from a top-notch beauty like me. You don't need to look elsewhere, do you? I held it together but finally snapped and slapped her. That slap left Alice's pretty face red. It also snapped me out of some almost self-doubting thoughts I had. I thought it was the end of it. But a few days later, Howard went live again. In my past life, I studied art. Even though I've been a stay-at-home husband, I used to post my work on my account since high school. It wasn't a career, but I did have some fans. Especially after posting some comics that showed my everyday life with Tina, which unexpectedly blew up, even getting a publishing deal. But that was in my past life. While waiting for Tina these 5 years, I updated it with some memories from back then. It was my way of remembering Tina. Eventually, Tina stopped appearing on the account, replaced with updates about my entrepreneurial journey. Like when I recently beat out Tina and others for new investment. This didn't catch much attention compared to the love life of a CEO, so I didn't have many followers. I mostly updated it for fun, not really caring. But I was more concerned that Tina's company seemed on the verge of collapsing. Dad had a sharp eye. Without long-term investment, Tina's project couldn't succeed. I thought this would be the end of my connection with Tina's story. Until one day, someone sent me a recording of Howard's livestream. His eyes were red, but he looked determined. He said, "Tina and I both came from ordinary families. We've worked hard to get where we are, thinking effort would be rewarded. Turns out we've been pawns for the rich from the start. Sir, Tina and you are from different worlds. With a flick of your fingers, you could crush her. Crushing the company to force Tina to compromise won't work. Please let her go and let our hard work go." A lot of people flooded my comic account. They found my old comics. I never mentioned the main character's name, but her appearance, her background, her work all matched Tina's. There was a lot of vulgar language, hard to ignore. I don't know why Howard did this. Dad called me right away. He spoke like nothing had happened. "George, want to take a vacation? Dad thinks the Maldives is nice. You were gonna go after high school, right? Time to make up for it now." My nose tingled. In both lifetimes, I seemed like a burden to Dad. He's tough on everyone, never sparing words, but when it comes to me, he's so cautious, afraid I'd get hurt. I smiled. "I'll go once things settle at the company, and take Dad with me." Dad wanted to say more, but I interrupted. "Don't worry, Dad. I'm not afraid. I'm no longer a flower in a greenhouse. I don't need someone to shield me, to water me. I can face the storms myself." I posted a statement on my account, wishing Tina and Howard a happy engagement. In high school, I had a crush on Tina, but that was years ago. No such pressure exists as Howard claimed. Half a day later, Tina posted something too. "Howard's a bit straightforward, impulsive, can't hide things, sorry for the trouble." The picture was her cooking for Howard, matching my comic, had a touch of finding joy in hardship. In the midst of this buzz, Alice went live under the name of George's fiancé. She didn't do much, just sunbathed and stared into space. After some sunbathing, she switched sides in front of the camera to continue. With an overly perfect face, a Patek Philippe on her wrist, and a sexy bikini, it seemed she wasn't just sunbathing. Much later, she spoke slowly. "George has been with someone like me. Would he even look at Tina?" In the comments, people were giving thumbs up. Actions speak louder than words. Tina's pretty, but Alice's face is just too striking. But no one knows she's lying. I haven't been with her. After a while, Alice jumped into the pool to swim. After swimming a bit, she flicked her hair water off and gave the camera a heart. "Fiancé, did you see me?" I didn't. I quietly closed the stream and logged out. It seemed like that could be the end of it. But some people just wouldn't let go. Someone posted, "Just because she has a fiancé doesn't mean she hasn't done it before, right?" Easy to see through, but there's always bystanders or people who love drama that get misled. But those words didn't cause a big stir. I started probing into Tina's company's financial situation. As expected, it was bleak. This is why Howard and Tina made bold moves, trying to use the internet to boost Tina Tech's profile. But they focused on the wrong spot. Tina's isn't a pop company. No one's investing in a tech company over gossip. Howard kept hyping up Tina Tech's products in his live stream. But slowly, people in the comments started catching on. Someone bluntly pointed out Howard's intentions. And this, on the surface, had nothing to do with an innocent Tina. I chuckled, then shared some financial records. All the money I sent to Tina over these 5 years. I couldn't find Tina, but her bank account never changed. The recipient's name was as clear as day. Before long, one of Tina's old classmates stepped up and mentioned how my family has been supporting several underprivileged students for a while. Both my family and the school always emphasized keeping a low profile. Initially, he didn't want to bring this up, but seeing Tina's behavior, he couldn't stay silent. "Wouldn't it be nice if you had feelings for me too? I'm cheaper than Tina. I could stay single for 30 years just so you could have a secret crush on me. Please, I'm begging you." Things started to take a turn. The public sense of justice can switch pretty fast. Tina had no choice but to address it head-on. She thanked George for his past admiration. She mentioned that she and Howard had already explained things from back then, and he felt really sorry. "May our friendship last forever." Every word seemed to carry hidden meaning. She didn't even mention the previous misunderstandings. Howard's blunt and fiery personality was really convenient right now. By framing it as friendship, she made it seem like the money given was out of concern for a friend, with no need for payback. Being inarticulate always seemed like Tina's disguise. Or maybe it was just my assumption all along. Watching too many romance novels makes you start projecting their traits onto real people. This person is the class bully, so she's loyal. This person is the younger student, so she's lively and cute. But people are always multifaceted. In these few years of this life, I seem to have grown more than in decades of the previous life. You really need to explore the world for yourself and walk your own path in life. My company is doing better and better. We're even taking on some projects from my mother-in-law's company. But Tina's company is slowly fading away. However, Tina can still leverage her memories from the last life to make money. She can invest in stocks or real estate as an individual. But she can never take her companies public again. I've started seeing Alice more frequently. She's not hitting the club scene as much anymore. I quickly learned why. Her half-brother returned to the country. She needed my support. I picked a time to have dinner with her at a fancy restaurant. Good food can really bring people closer. Once you've shared a meal with someone, you're no longer strangers, you've got a shared meal connection. Alice seemed pretty happy with my invitation. She dressed to the nines, catching everyone's eyes as she walked in. She's stunning. Without makeup, she's like a little swan. Once she's dressed up, she's more like a swan princess. Why are you so forward today? Missed me? She teased, her ears turning red. No idea if she was faking or being real. I didn't bother to reply, just focused on the menu. Alice seemed in a great mood and kept smiling. Midway through dinner, a commotion broke out nearby. Massive green plants blocked the tables from each other, so I couldn't see anyone, but I heard voices I recognized. Howard was there, sounding pissed. Tina, you can't use me like that. You're the one who told me George was bothering you, that's why Tina sounded as cold as ever. I never said that. I just mentioned he's been trying to find me for 5 years, that's how you took it. What about the money he gave you? Tina, you don't even need that money anymore. Why not give it back? It'd make us look less at fault. Tina calmly replied, he wanted to give it to me. I never asked for it. It wasn't a loan, so it's not about returning it. We look bad because you made a big deal out of it, letting people smear my name. Tina had a point. The money was indeed something I freely gave. Unconditional resource sharing. But Howard couldn't accept that. He slammed his knife and fork, stood up, and stormed off. Tina followed soon after. She spotted me on the way out, froze for a second, like she wanted to come over. But then Alice shot her a look and planted a cheeky kiss on my cheek. Tina's face went blank for a moment before she turned and left. Alice, on the other hand, looked even smirkier, even humming a little tune. By the time I finished eating, I wiped my mouth and said, I'll help you outshine your brother, but I want 5% of the shares once it's done. Her smile died abruptly. This dinner wasn't exactly a bust, but Alice didn't look too pleased by the end. It shouldn't mess with our collaboration, though. As for Tina and Howard, they still seemed all lovey-dovey on Howard's account, like everything was made up. But rumors started swirling. People spotted Howard on a dating app. Only side profiles and backs, but folks recognized him. Soon after, some companies in the industry mentioned they'd gotten his resume. He seemed to be slowly cutting ties with Tina. The spring of the next year rolled around. I began focusing more on work. Friends I used to gossip with have faded away, becoming names on a list, just drifting due to different life paths. A few still stick around, and the people showing interest in me seem to be a whole new batch. Meanwhile, plans for my engagement party with Alice were put into the works. A few days before the party, I ran into Tina again. She tried to visit but was stopped by the secretary. We really didn't have anything more to discuss. But she somehow got into my residential area and waited at my doorstep. Seeing her again conjured up mixed feelings. Tina and I lived a whole life together. But the insight I've gained these few years far surpasses the decades we shared before. A young girl in poverty. Shy, diligent, quiet, loyal. She loved me but just didn't know how to express it. That was my past view of her. But that impression was only partially accurate. Long-buried memories resurfaced once more. In our first year of marriage, she worked a 24-hour shift but still came back to celebrate my birthday, holding a bouquet and cooking for me. By our 5th anniversary, the business was picking up, and even though she was abroad, she flew back overnight to surprise me. She even scoured many places to find a watch I casually mentioned liking. In our 10th year, she took a long vacation to travel with me. She couldn't disconnect entirely, so she kept handling business calls. But it didn't change how happy I was. All these moments were beautiful memories. Maybe a lot of it looks better in memory. Looking back, it seems just okay. Someone else could have done it too. Tina and I shouldn't have met again a long time ago. She chose a new life, and so did I. I stepped out of the greenhouse and saw a new world. But now, Tina doesn't seem to think the same. She dressed up like I used to style her in my past life, looking really pretty. She even did her hair. The past incident troubled George a lot, and I've been wanting to apologize on Howard's behalf. In person, Howard misunderstood our relationship and acted wrong. This incident made me realize that maybe Howard and I aren't right for each other. I listened to Tina's words coldly. I couldn't tell what's true or false, but all I heard was her avoiding responsibility. If Howard really misunderstood Tina on his own, she had countless chances to stop him from trashing me online. But she didn't. The Tina I remembered, older but comforting, started to lose her color. All that's left was the young, calculating Tina in front of me. She blamed everything on Howard. Like a dream, people's hearts change easily. And she's changed again and again. Tina said, "George, by some twist of fate, we missed 5 years. Now, I wonder, is there still a chance to truly know each other?" Her serious expression had a hint of caution, but she couldn't hide the determination in her eyes. She seemed to assume that since I liked her so much in my past life, I'd feel the same now. Otherwise, I wouldn't have looked for her for 5 years. But I don't deny the past, but I don't long for a future with her. I smiled and said, "No need to get to know each other again. We already knew each other in our past lives." The neighborhood was quiet. Above, the stars got brighter. Tina's breathing almost stopped. She looked at me, opened her mouth, but didn't say anything. She was reminiscing, trying to recall our interactions. I watched her calmly. She seemed to finally realize. Years ago, when I blocked that bottle for her, I was already reborn, and she was reborn even earlier than me. According to the past life's death time, she was 16 years earlier. She planned everything for her life, excitedly ready for a do-over. She accumulated wealth using memories from the past life. But because her starting capital was too small, the speed was slow. And in all her plans, there was no me. I went from being unknowingly in love with her, to realizing the truth and watching coldly, to being complete strangers now. We have no possibilities left. Her appearance only disgusts me. Tina finally realized we're at a dead end. Her face turned as white as a sheet, losing all color. Her lips trembled, as if she wanted to say something, but I had no patience left to chat with her. As I went to close the door, Tina grabbed hold. Her last words were, "Can you not get engaged to Alice yet? I know I made some mistakes, but you don't have to marry someone you don't love just to spite me." I let out a cold laugh, kicked her, and shut the door on Tina's distressed face. Later, Howard came to see me too. He sincerely apologized. I had nothing much to say, but he promised to take responsibility for his actions. I didn't respond much. The previous online harassment didn't really harm me. In my past life, I'm not sure of the whole story, but I always got dragged into it innocently. So, I chose not to enter a happy ending storyline with him. Unexpectedly, he later apologized live on stream. More people in the comments started to see clearly. No comment on the streamer, but why's the sly girl still hiding so prettily? Tina came by many more times after that. I ignored her, but at my and Alice's engagement party, she didn't show. She sent me a message, "George, I'll wait for you." Alice saw it and was furious for a while, sending dozens of 60-second voice messages cursing her in different languages. But Tina, having lived through 2 lifetimes, wouldn't be scared off by a few words from a young girl. Her message remained directed at me. Alice is so immature. Are you sure you want to choose her? After the engagement party ended. As we parted, Alice caught me off guard, pulling me into an embrace and pressing her lips on mine. She was a good kisser, very into it. I enjoyed it, almost getting lost in it. Then I suddenly snapped back to reality and rolled my eyes. Alice sent that photo to Tina. Tina blocked her. Before the new year hit, Tina disappeared. Howard submitted evidence of Tina's company evading taxes and bribery, putting Tina behind bars. He originally didn't intend for mutual destruction, just a clean break. But Tina held his non-compete agreement, leaving him no option to find another job. You either stay jobless or keep working for Tina's declining company. So many things can't be overthought. 6 months later, my wedding with Alice was a grand affair. Before it, Dad asked me again and again if I was marrying Alice out of love. He didn't want me marrying for any benefits. I asked him back, did he come together with Mom for love? He paused, then smiled and said, yes. My mom loved him a lot, that's why they got together and had me. But when that love faded, they parted ways. I said, I can do that too. Love boldly when in love, and stop when the love is gone. I wasn't sure how long Alice and I would be together, but for now I wanted to marry her. There's not that much pure love in the world. Because it's fitting, because it's her, so I love. And me, I'm unafraid of any outcome now. Epilogue. In our 5th year of marriage, Alice and I went our separate ways. For many reasons. Her having too many male friends was part of it. Her lack of capability was another part, but not the deciding factor. The deciding factor was she wanted kids, to use me to have a child for an inheritance, not out of love. Her family pressured her. Her eldest sister already had 3 kids, and another on the way. She mentioned it twice to me. When she brought it up the 3rd time, I knew our marriage was over. When we parted, Alice's hands were tightly clenched. I got into my Bentley, hearing her ask behind me, George, how can you be so heartless? Do you have no feelings for me at all? I do. But how much? I don't even know. It's real and it's ironic. Decades of lies end up changing a person. Tina made me afraid of loving freely again. Most of the time, I love myself more and my dad. Afraid of getting hurt even a little. I don't know if this is a good thing. Maybe it is. At least now, I'm not all that hurt. For Alice, it's probably not great. But she'll eventually accept it. Everyone's growing, everyone's changing. She will too. Life is long. There's nothing you can't get over. I'll keep moving forward little by little. This is the normal state of life.